Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Been a while since I made a video, but I was kind of waiting on the ban list to actually start making more content. Expect a few more videos over the next week for me, because just there's a ban list, I've got a lot of things to talk about. And they did it. They killed Dracotail. This deck is dead. This deck is not good. I did say in my ban list prediction that I think Rahu to 1 would be enough to make this deck not playable, and I still agree with that, and then they did more. One of the hits is fake, like they put Lion to 2, which doesn't matter, but the Lucius hit on top plus the Brand Diffusion hit. This deck is generally not good. But I figured I would give it one last shot. I'd build it, approach it. Took an hour or so, a couple hours yesterday, and just tried to see how I would build the deck if I were to approach it for this format. But I will get out ahead of it and say that I don't think the deck is very good, unfortunately. But I'll show you the build. I'll talk about the general theory while we go along, my other ideas I had when I was just thinking about how I would build it, and then we'll go from there. So we'll start with the main deck. We've got the 3/5 mana, obviously. There's 2 Lucius now, unfortunately. I had a little bit of a consistency hit, and lose a normal summon. Lose a Dracotail name. It's a bit unfortunate, but yep, it is what it is. And then the one below. I think they could have given this card back to 3. Like, with Rahu at 1 and Brand Diffusion at 1, like, I think 3 Malolo would have been a nice gift to make the deck maybe semi-playable. But I don't think the deck is particularly well positioned against Kultun already. So I don't think this deck will see much play at all. The one Frixel still playing. I'm playing 1 Argula now, which is a big difference from my previous list. I always advocated for 3 of this card. This card isn't useful into Kultun in my opinion. I don't think it interacts very well with their board. It's not good with 5 mana. It's just not really good as like a card to keep in your hand with 5 mana when you're going first against that deck. So instead we've swapped the ratios and I'm playing 2 Pan now. I am in general just playing less Dracotail names in this deck. So like I'm missing the 1 Lucius, and then I'm also playing 3 dragons as opposed to 4. So there is generally just less names, and the reason for that is there are now just less ways to fuse in this deck. Like you're missing 2 Rahus. So like going second, drawing a name isn't as important. Before I wanted to have a higher concentration of names, so you could draw Rahu plus a name, and then you would get your double name Rahus off, but that's gonna happen a whole lot less in this deck. So generally I just decided to play less names. The other way you could approach it is to play more ways to fuse. I have another supplementary engine in here that like kind of helps with that, but like the other way is like maybe you go to 3 Cartesia, maybe you play stuff like Odd-Eyes Dissolver, Patchwork Package, all that sort of stuff, but in general I don't think I'm a fan of those, because it does rely on you drawing 2 cards to fuse with from your hand. Whereas cards like Rahu and Ketu always guaranteed you 1 name out of your deck. You could pick and choose whichever you want and trigger whichever you want. Going for like a method of fusing which involves Cartesia or Patchwork or stuff like that involves you drawing 2 names in your hand, and then you want one of them to be good. So in general that would mean playing larger dragon package, which can just brick you a lot more. So that is just the general theory on how I think the monsters would go, and then sadly there's the 1 Rahu and the 1 Ketu. Nothing we can do about it. This deck's grind game is also really dead, in my opinion. You have barely any spell traps to set. So like I'm playing 2 traps. I'm playing Horn and Flame. This is a big difference from last format where it was Sting and Flame, and that's because of Kultun. You want the removal is much more valuable against Kultun than Sting. Because most of their stuff is normal summons, especially now that Overtake's been hit. They're normal summons the majority, so it's always in attack mode, so it gives you a removal of a body, just keep them off bodies on the board. And Flame has always just been the best Dracotail trap. And the reason I'm playing 2 Dracotail traps is that like I think the Dracotail part is one of the weaker parts of this engine now. I think you will less consistently get to 3 traps in general. And one of the reasons I would consider playing a 3rd is to help the grind game, because right now you can only ever trigger 4 Dracotail names without resolving a trap, which is terrible. Like this deck's grind game doesn't exist anymore. But I think that is just a consequence of the ban list, and I don't think playing a 3rd trap and Shawless in your extra deck would help like fix that issue more than like it should be. So unfortunately this is all for the Dracotail engine, I think. As a technically 3rd copy of all your spells, there's no Prosp. Like there's a chance you hit a spell. Like it just helps with the consistency. Maybe you see spells more often. I think it's just pretty much mandatory now that your consistency has been hit. Onto the branded package, which we're still playing, the 2 Fallen of White Dragon and the Albaz package, and the 1 Ecclesia. I think this engine is actually quite good into Kultun. I think that's the reason why branded actually seems to have a decent matchup against Kultun. Unfortunately, Fallen of Albaz itself is a bit weaker into stuff like Harmonia. But if they don't have Harmonia, it's really really good against that deck in general. And I think you would still play these cards if you were to play the deck. I think the other way you would approach this deck is maybe play Magistus, which means like you'd also probably cut down on the pan, play the complete bare minimum Dracotail engine. But I don't think the Magistus package gets you to a fusion summon going second consistently enough that I would try it, to be honest. And then still the 2 Cartesia. I've always liked the 2 Cartesia in this deck, more so now that you've lost 2 ways to fuse with Rahu. This is just more ways to fuse. You can start your plays more often. When your synchro doesn't resolve, it gets and you hard draw this, it just guarantees that you can play the game if you have Dracotail names. And then the 1 Branded Fusion. This is a bigger hit to this deck than it is to Branded. This card was much more powerful in this deck than it wasn't Branded, unfortunately. But yeah, it is what it is. But to supplement the loss of that, I'm playing something else. The 2 Fallen of Virtuous. This would also be 3, but because the supplementary engine we're playing, we have more access to this card in general, so I think 2 is fine. And then the supplementary engine we've been talking about is a 3 Branded opening. And I'm playing 2 Aliber. So this is something that people were already did mess around with at some point last format. I know Tom Klinagraber and Ernst Schultz were playing this at the Dortmund YCS. I think Gabriel Susse played this at the YCS Vegas. It's just more access to Branded Fusion. They're not particularly amazing into hand traps. Opening is an egg 1, but the reason this deck does well going second and is powerful is the spell cards. So I think you just have to play more access to the spell cards. I was playing 2, like in lists that when I tried this last format, it was 1 Aliber, but we did lose a Lucius, so I think you could add an extra normal summon and not be particularly aggrieved by that. I think this could also be a 3rd Cartesia instead if you wanted to stick with the 1 Aliber and just rely on opening more. But yeah, Aliber also does give us like easier access to the Fallen of Virtuous once we already do have Branded Fusion access somehow. But I think for now, this is the package I would try out at the start of the format. Just give yourself more Branded Fusion access, because Branded Fusion is a crazy card in this deck. It's much better than it is in Branded. Stuff with Fallen of Virtuous as well. Like this card is also really good against all the target negates that like Skeleton are playing. They're playing stuff like Bell and they're playing stuff like Valor and Imperm, which Virtuous is good against, which is why I kind of wanted to play 3. But with the Aliber already, you do kind of have more access to it than usual. And that's it for all the engine in the deck. The non-engine is 3 Fua. I mean, it's just good in this deck. It's one of the best cards to go draw going second. 3 Ash. 2 Droll. I think this card is particularly good against Kultun. I think with the loss of Synchro Overtake, they were going to have to play stuff like Duelist Genesis or Pot of Desires or Pot of Prosperity, and all those cards just play worse into Droll. I think the deck already was a bit weak to Droll, but like some hands obviously could ignore it. That's just kind of what Droll is. Sometimes Droll's insane, sometimes Droll's terrible. I think with the replacements they're going to have to play instead of their overtakes, it'll make their deck worse into Droll in general. I think you should just play Droll against Kultun right now. The Ashes in this deck is just like, it's just a hand trap that you can consistently loop back, which is fine. I don't think it's particularly high impact, but I think if you ever get to Ashes Charmy and add it back, that will add a lot of win rate to your board. And then the Fua, I don't even think this card's that great against Kultun, but pairing it with like a strong engine hand can be good against Kultun because most of the time they're forced to pass on like Trackmaker. And if they're passing on Trackmaker or not like Remix, and like also this kind of disincentivizes them for going for Q, summon Ash from deck and add it back, which is like how the best ways that Kultun has to beat this deck. So if you fool with them, they're not going to get to search Ash in their combo. So if they haven't drawn it, they will just have a lower win rate against you. So I still think you have to play this in this version of this deck just so they don't search Ash Washroom against you. And then I'm still playing the 3 Droplets. This is something that you definitely could be wrong because we do have less of the spells. There's less Rahu, but like I guess it's fine to pair it with opening, and it's also just good against going second against Kultun with like Valors and Imperms. It helps you dodge those to make sure your Aliber resolves to get your Branded Fusion. This could be Super Poly. I did quickly build a version with Super Poly, but the extra deck space was so tight that I don't think I liked it. I also think Super Poly is a bit overrated against Kultun because they do know it's there. They end on their 1 monster boards, and even their 1 monster boards are like have a lot of interactions. I don't think Super Poly is that great. And like I consider Crown as well, but like Crown doesn't really help you push through your things through like Impermanent Valor. So I just decided to stick with the droplets for now. And that's it for the main deck. It's 40 cards. Can't say I'm like confident and this is the best version to play Dracotail. I did just as a quick build that I made in 1 day after seeing the ban list, but this is the first approach I would take to the deck. But I do not think the deck is particularly good. but we'll move on anyway. Extra deck, 2 Lion. Like, why did they put this card to 2? This card was a 2 of. I don't think you should ever have been playing 3 of this already anyway. So, like, whatever. This was just a non-hit. 1 Guillemot. I'm not playing the Shawless, which is questionable. It might be necessary with your 4 Dracotail spells and traps to actually have a grind game, but I'm just not confident that having a 3rd trap and a Shawless will actually make your grind game doable. I think you might want to rely on your branded cards more for the grind game now than your Dracotail cards. Your Dracotail cards are there to help your first end board be good, and maybe they don't push through it and then you win from there. I don't think you're going to grind with Dracotail very much, especially since you're playing with the 2 traps. Like, Cooltoon right now are playing Bell and Ash, so there's also a good chance the traps don't resolve, unfortunately. So I just don't think Shawless would save you from having a grind game, which I think is just a consequence of the ban list. 2 Albion. I think this was mandatory last format. It's mandatory this format. I don't think you need Sanctifier. Brad Fusion's just better with this. The Dogma. I mean, it's just best Albaz target. It's really good. The 1 Rinbrum. This card's mandatory in my opinion. It just comes up with, like, using Albaz on your opponent's turn all the time. The 1 Titaniclad, also mandatory in my opinion. End phase Albaz is really good. It's also good against Cooltoon because one of their negates is RS, which is like main phase only. And like, if you can bait out the Zaylon in main phase 1, you have a Titaniclad engraved, you get to do end phase Albaz stuff, and if they don't have the Harmonia, it can be really powerful and swing the game in your favor. The 1 Lenitus. I think this card was cuttable last format, but I think with Zaylon in the format right now, I do want the Lenitus in the extra deck because while Cooltoon players are maybe getting used to the deck, they're gonna, like, a lot of the end boards do just have Zaylon on it, and I want to force, like, if I have Albaz on board, just being able to make Lenitus straight away. It's often they're just gonna have to remove this body, otherwise the Zaylon won't stick. And for a while, I want to, like, test this out more and see if Cooltoon opponents respect that this card exists. The 1 Merged, obviously standard. 1 Secretarion, you don't need 2 of this card anymore. The mirror match doesn't exist. The 1 Mysterion. Malice is still a really good deck in my opinion, so I think you still do have to play this. It's also quite decent against Mitsurugi, which I think is a good deck. Not particularly great against Cooltoon, and it's not that great against, like, Striker, which I'd say are another top decks, or Branded, but I think for, like, other rogue decks, you want to put the Mysterion. The 1 Chaos, standard, you make this card all the time. I'm playing Fairly Regis now. Because I'm playing the 2 Pans, you can make this card a lot more often, and it's also, like, delayed removal, so against Cooltoon, it's really strong to go, like, 5 mana with Pan and Arthalion into, like, Regis, Pan pop one of their normal summons. Then if they have an extender, like an extra normal summon, or overtake, or anything like that, you can then Regis banish the next extender. Just the delayed removal is really important against Cooltoon, I think. So I think the Regis does need to fit in your deck, especially if I'm playing more Pan now. If I went down to 1 Pan, then maybe I could consider, like, cutting the Regis, because you do just make it less often. But I think for now, I'm playing the Regis. And then the 1 Ecclesia. That is standard. Things missing from this extra deck is, like, SP. You're locked into, with Branded Opening, you're locked into fusions more, and, like, yeah, I don't think you're going to summon it that often. The Lubellion, I think I would have liked to have it in here, but, like, the extra deck is so tight. You could cut the Mysterion for it, to be honest. One of the builds I didn't have the Mysterion. You put the Lubellion instead, which could be a big possibility, to be honest. And something else I considered trying was the Grand Guignol, because you're playing more of a branded deck now. You can maybe just, like, it gives something that your Aliber can actually do in this deck, because currently there's, like, no fusion monster in here you can actually use Aliber for. Can you, like, maybe, like, Lubellion with Albaz if you're playing Lubellion, because it's not a spellcaster, it's not a dragon, like, you can't usually use Aliber for anything. This would give Cartesia something to do with Aliber, but I'm not sure it's necessary. But yeah, these are just options that could have been in the deck. And then I'll show a quick side deck for the next format. It's nothing special or, like, particularly well thought out. Purulia, just, like, I think VS is still going to exist, and just other in general decks that just summon from the hand, like, they do exist, but I don't think even this card's that great either. 2 Bastiles, I think Branded's one of the best decks next format, and I think having these against Branded would help you quite a lot. So I just in general think you should play these. 1 Nib, there's only 1 Nib in here because currently my deck doesn't have a Liger out, and that deck didn't get hit. So there's just 1 Nib in here, so that, like, game 2, we have this to send off Titaniclad and actually make your Titaniclad big enough to beat a Liger. Followed by, we're going first. 1 Duster and 2 Storm, just for all the back roads. Like DeFi is still going to exist because it didn't hit that card for some reason, so you want something for the DeFi decks. 3 Nadir Servant, this is like an innovation that came up at the YCS Cartagena, which I think is quite cool. I think is a really good first package in this deck. It gives you an extra push into hand traps against Cooltoon. The end board that it makes along with the Lulu Lilith is actually quite good. It's basically a branded end board. Having this at the end of your combo when you get stopped, or just at the end on top of your combo, is crazy whenever you don't draw out. Like if you just draw pure Dracotail hands, having this at the end to turn it into an Albaz hand as well, really good in my opinion. So definitely like that addition to the deck. And the 1 Duster to go with the Storm. I've put 2 Dusters in here, sorry, ignore that. Built this, like I said, I built this deck really quick. So maybe like a second appearance of one of the Dusters. You can't play 2 Duster. And the 1 Sting. Yeah, so I'm saving this thing instead of maining it because decks like Branded and decks like Skystriker, this is much better. This main deck is built more towards the Cooltoon matchup, so that's why there's the Horn instead. But if you expect more Branded and more Striker, then yeah, Sting would be better. And yep, that's it for the list, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give me your options on how you think you should build the deck next format. Please subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. That would be really cool to hit. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be coming soon.